Hello YouTube. Today we'll be reacting to the high cost of living and high cost of rent that is drowning a lot of Americans. Guys, if you don't know, I live here in America as well. I live in St. Louis, so I get to experience the high cost of living here. You know, high cost of rent, food, including car payments. These things are just going up. Interest rate is high. People can't even afford to pay rent, and people can't even afford to buy houses anymore.
Madam Speaker, the rent is too damn high. The rent is too damn high. We have people across the country struggling to keep a roof over their heads. We are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world outside of ancient African civilizations. Yet we cannot provide housing for every single person in our country. We have CEOs making record profits. We have corporations making record profits. We have corporate landlords suppressing and oppressing and evicting tenants without just cause while continuing to raise the rent. We call on President Biden to take executive action on this issue. We do not have a healthy democracy or a healthy society unless we take care of our tenants and our working class people who are working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week just to survive.
Moments time's expired.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Yes, a lot of landlords are using AI now to set up their prices, and they all kind of come to an agreement that they're going to keep prices high. And if you look online now, search on Zillow or anywhere you go, and you try to search for an apartment, you will notice that everywhere you look it's pretty much the same, because most landlords have come together and they agree to keep these prices high. I think it's time. I hate to get the government involved in everything, but I think it's time the federal government steps in and try to do something about this, because things are just so difficult.
Millennials and Gen Zers who are complaining that they can't buy a house are not working for minimum wage. These are people making $60, $70, $80, $90,000 a year who can no longer afford a house. But minimum wage workers are also complaining because they can't afford rent. If you look back to 1980, the rent was $243. Minimum wage was $3.10, meaning your monthly gross was $496. So to rent this apartment, it would be 48.9% of your gross income back in 1980. But let's fast forward to 2024. The average rent is $17.47. The federal minimum wage is $7.25, giving you $11.60. You can't even get an apartment with the federal minimum wage. But let's be generous and double the federal minimum wage, because people at Walmart and fast food joints are making $14.50 to $15. So $14.50 would bring you to $23.20. So technically you're making more, but this is your gross, and it'd be 75% of your gross income, making double the federal minimum wage in 2024. But let's take it even a step further. ZipRecruiter said that the starting pay for college graduates is $24 an hour. So that would be $38.40 a month. So someone with a bachelor's degree could afford this one-bedroom apartment, but it would be 45.4% of their gross income. A college graduate is spending the same amount of their income on rent as the minimum wage worker in 1980 did. Roughly the same. And the minimum wage worker in 1980 put on a hat, learned skills for 2 weeks, and started their job. A bachelor's degree spent 4, 5, 6 years of their life in school and $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and now have to spend the same amount of money on rent as a minimum wage worker did in 1980.
There should absolutely be rent caps. Rent should be lower. Rent is insane.
I got a survey from my new property manager yesterday, and it was basically just like, tell us how we're doing. Not gonna lie, I was a little afraid to be honest on it, but like, fuck it, what are they gonna do, kick me out? So I did it, and one of the questions on there was like, do you think what you pay for your apartment is fair? And like, list the reasons why or why not. And I was like, yeah, no. First of all, no basic one-bedroom apartment should cost $2,000 or more. And then I continue on to tell them why, on top of that, why this apartment is just not even close to worth what I'm paying. Like, you see these windows? And you see this Snuggie or whatever the fuck I'm wearing? Yeah, that's because these windows let in so much cold air that, like, our apartment freezes. We cannot put our heat above 73, but it stays on 73 all winter long. But then you get mornings like this where you have to put on really comfy clothes and stay all snugly and warm because your apartment is 65 degrees, if not colder, because I don't believe that thermostat. Not to mention, it's way worse in the bedroom. Speaking of the bedroom, when it gets hot in there in the summertime, this little AC can't get in there. We sweat tits all summer long. There's also a fan in the bathroom that is supposedly fixed, even though we've had maintenance over at least twice to fix it. And it's just still blowing mold just all over the bathroom. Totally worth $2,000 a month. I also figured I'd throw in there that when a plumber came into my apartment, last year, he told maintenance that in all of his days working in plumbing, he's been up and down the East Coast and he's never seen plumbing as bad as the plumbing in my building. Awesome! I only have 500 characters, so that's about as far as I could go. Obviously, that's not even remotely the last issue that this apartment has. Yet I predict that my rent will still somehow go up for next year, even though this new property management group is just sowing chaos across this complex. Because let me tell you, I went into the leasing office to deal with a rent issue because paying rent is now not easy with this new system that they implemented. And yeah, I wasn't the only person there to complain and be like, what the fuck is going on?
Guys, I remember when you can find a 1-bedroom apartment for $500. Again, I live here in St. Louis, Missouri. I used to see $500 apartment for 1 bedroom around town. But today, if you go on Zillow, I don't know what city you live in, go to Zillow and type in 1-bedroom apartment, or just go online and type in 1-bedroom apartment. I believe in most cities right now, you can barely find anything for $500. And if you do, I bet you it's in some kind of neighborhoods that you don't even want to live in. It's crazy. And the reason they said this is going on is because the Feds increased the interest rate. But come on, they need to help out because people are really struggling out here. Imagine paying $2,000 for rent every month. How much are you making? Let's say you even make $4,000 a month or $5,000 a month. Then what are you going to do with the rest? You still got your car payments, you still have insurance, you got to eat, you got cell phone bills and every other thing else. If you have student loan, you got to pay all those, but interest rate is going up on all those things as well. Then they need to do something to help people out.
Has anyone noticed that it's literally becoming impossible to live a normal life because of the inflation that's going on? Literally, our rent payment used to be $800. 2-bedroom, 2 full bath. $1,400. $1,400 is what we pay now. Used to be $800 just a few years ago, and now it's $1,400. Go figure. My auto insurance gone up 28%. Again, go figure. Inflation. Don't let me forget to mention electric bill, $300. For what? For what? It's ridiculous. It's crazy. Now the icing on the cake, I feel like I go to the grocery store. Okay, I go to Kroger. I feel like I go in there with $100 and I come out with a gallon of milk and 2 pieces of toast. And not even the good pieces of toast. You know, like the end pieces. That's what I come out with. It is dumb what is going on. How has inflation affected you guys? Because, again, rent used to be $800, now it's $1,400. $300 electric bill? Like, seriously, guys? Like, this is stupid. This is what's been going on in America. Inflation.
This is sad, and this is happening to everyone. Everyone is feeling the heat. Hey guys, please leave a comment below and let us know how you're dealing with this level of high cost of living. And please like and share this video so that it will help the algorithm. Please leave a comment. Let's know what you're dealing with out here. Okay, guys?
I'm honestly so upset. Living in America is freaking ridiculous right now. There are people choosing whether they want to have Christmas gifts or pay their rent, and that might not be different from any other year. $2 to $3 grand on average. You need to make 2 to 3 times that. $9,000 a month. How many people with regular bachelor degrees are even making that? No one. Not a lot of people. No one wants to live with roommates. That's not the answer. Everybody deserves a safe and clean space. There's no reason why so many people should be roommating, or you can't even buy yourself your own house. This is horrible.
Come this November, landlords will have a target on their backs. President Biden to target greedy, rent-gouging landlords, as they are the ones to blame for the high rent. Now, there's no question that rent is very high, and housing in general is way unaffordable for the average individual. And there's no doubt that there are going to be people out there, landlords, who are going to exploit and take advantage of the situation. But I don't think you can actually get away with saying that greedy landlords are the reason why rents are so high. Let me explain. Because the cost to buy a house with high interest rates and the high price tags is super high, nobody is buying a house. However, everybody still needs a place to live. So what's basically happening is that the high demand for housing is being diverted over towards the rental market, driving up the cost. This is exactly what we saw in 2008 when the housing market collapsed, rentals became in high demand, and prices went up. High demand, high interest rates, and nobody buying homes is what's going to keep the prices up. I think the president knows all this, but I think he just wants you to think that he thinks this way in order to appeal to a certain crowd, as well as divert the conversation away from what's really happening. Just recently, he was talking about giving more grants to buyers and more grants to people who already had homes in order for them to scale up. Why isn't he talking about corporations buying up all the homes? This is a big issue when it comes to housing affordability with homes in general. This is another contributing factor what artificially raises the cost of living.
It's late 2023, the Phoenix area. Investigators with the State Attorney General's office are looking at apartment rents. They're up 76% since 2016. Something is off. These 4 building rents are 12% higher than others, but they offer similar amenities. They have different landlords, so you'd think they should be competing with one another, but they weren't. The prices were allegedly being set by one entity, an algorithm owned by a company called RealPage. In fact, this was happening everywhere in the area.
That's old-fashioned price fixing using new technology.
We allege, in effect, a housing cartel.
Over 2,000 miles away, something similar is happening. It's alleged that all of these different units, their prices were set by one single algorithm, which sounds bad. And it could be happening in cities and states across the country. Renters have filed over 30 different lawsuits against RealPage. We're going to talk about what all this means, how algorithms, these black boxes of data, are shaping our markets and giving an incredible amount of power to the few, and how the Department of Justice and some state attorney generals are fighting back. Because this is a story about how a few lines of code broke the American housing market. What is RealPage?
So RealPage is a company that operates software that allows landlords to input their data into an algorithm, and then RealPage sets the prices for all of those landlords. This is actually against the law.
Attorney General Mays isn't the only one alleging this.
Our allegations are that RealPage, in combination with 14 of the largest landlords here in the District of Columbia, are effectively colluding with one another to set rents.
Across America, rent is up 20% since 2020. The Attorney Generals of Arizona and DC are suing RealPage and a host of big landlords, alleging that an algorithmic housing cartel is helping drive up prices.
In the pre-RealPage days, landlords would compete with one another.
They played a guessing game with rent prices. Push it too high and people move, leaving landlords hunting for new tenants. It was a delicate balance, a market. And I'm not sure if it was fair, but it wasn't rigged. An algorithm helped change all of that.
We're talking about an algorithm that aggregates otherwise confidential information that the landlords have that ordinarily they would not share with their competitors.
Data like rent prices, lease expiry dates, any deals they offer to tenants.
That allows then the algorithm to spit out a pricing recommendation, all designed to keep the overall market at its highest peak.
They are not charging what the market can bear. They are controlling the market. It's leading to the exacerbation of our affordability crisis, our housing crisis here in Arizona.
If you could imagine a smoke-filled room where the landlords, the largest landlords in the District of Columbia, came together to decide what they were going to charge in rent, to share their confidential information, everybody would be able to see that that's an anti-competitive practice.
Until recently, using shared pricing algorithms like this flew under the radar. If your algorithm set prices, you'd just say, it's not cheating, it's a suggestion. Not anymore. Lena Khan and the FTC have said, just a suggestion? That's price fixing, no excuses. And RealPage, according to the lawsuits, they weren't even pretending the prices were suggestions.
RealPage has a system set up where the landlords who have adopted the system agree to a set of rules.
One of the rules is that RealPage gets to set rent prices. If landlords want to charge less than the digital oracle suggests, they have to justify their decision.
The justification needs to be reviewed by RealPage. RealPage can push back against the justification.
And if you push back too much, RealPage can kick the landlord out of the scheme, with one insider telling investigators, Sometimes we were happy to see customers go.
They also had a policing agent that would go out and make sure that the landlords and their leasing agents were staying in line and not deviating from the price that was being set.
This scheme, if true, has had a real tangible impact on Americans.
RealPage advertises that it's going to increase revenues 2% to 7% for the participants in the cartel.
What RealPage is telling these landlords and is doing with these landlords is, don't worry about occupancy rates anymore. It doesn't matter really how many people move out of your building, you're still going to grow your revenue over time.
How? Through these coordinated price increases.
In Phoenix alone, we've seen rent increase 76% since 2016. It is almost certain that people were evicted as a result of these price increases, and that some people were made homeless by them.
To their prospective customers, the landlords, RealPage is pretty open about all of this. You can go to their website, type in a zip code, and view a sample of what buildings are using the software, along with any corresponding price changes. We'll see, this building right here, rent is actually down about 4%. If we just zoom out a little bit, a few blocks over, this rent is actually up 4%. They used to have videos where landlords talked about how RealPage's algorithm pushed them to raise rent, but the company deleted it after the Washington Post ran a story. On investor calls, they're flat out saying the algorithm is going to recommend higher lease rates for every property. But the company goes to great lengths to train landlords to hide this scheme from renters. Landlords were coached across a variety of scenarios and told not to mention RealPage or pricing algorithms to tenants. Instead, they were supposed to say stuff like units were being priced individually. RealPage and the larger industry dispute the charges. Since the onslaught of lawsuits, RealPage has largely stayed quiet, ignoring our request for an interview. But the industry has published a paper defending itself. They make a bunch of different arguments, but it boils down to two major points. The first, sharing info doesn't mean they're teaming up. Why? Because the rental world is just too big and too messy for any sort of secret deal to stick. But that doesn't seem to stand up to scrutiny.
The RealPage algorithm is being used by nearly 90% of the apartment owners in the DMV.
RealPage controls 70% of the rental units in Phoenix, and that they control at least 50% of the market in Tucson.
90% in DC, 70% in Phoenix. That hardly seems like a fragmented rental market. And their second point, more houses, not less data sharing, is the real fix for high rents.
That's bunk. You know, we've got apartment units all over Phoenix that aren't being rented right now because people can't afford them. The spaces are there, but people can't afford them because these landlords are setting artificially high rent via an algorithm, and that is just unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
Things are shifting. Renters are banding together in class action lawsuits. Arizona, DC, and possibly North Carolina are suing. They want to end the scheme, refund renters, and fine companies like RealPage. The DOJ has started a criminal investigation into the whole thing.
I don't think this is just an Arizona-based problem. This is not the only place where algorithms are being used to set prices.
This is, to me, one of the bigger kind of issues facing kind of our economy and consumers in the next decade or so.
There's a lot of positive things that algorithms and machine learning can do for society, but there are also risks associated with it. We can't be afraid of technology. We have to lean in and learn about it and make sure that we're keeping the public safe from the abuses that can sometimes flow from misuse of technology.
If you rent and are a little bit sad, a little bit disappointed that you don't own a home yet and you're not building equity like society tells you to, then this is for you. I was listening to I Will Teach You to Be Rich podcast, and Ramit said something that really resonated with me. He said that your rent is the most you're ever going to pay in a month. But when you have a mortgage, that's the least you're going to pay. You're going to have property taxes, insurance, you're going to have emergencies and house repairs, and things that pop up that when you own a home are like $10,000, $20,000 plus dollars. Like, that shit can be expensive. I do not have $20,000 to fix a roof, to replace a water heater, any of that. So, you know what? I'm good with my $1,100 a month on rent. I'm good with being able to travel and invest and experience new things. I'm good with not being house poor. That simple 2-sentence made me feel so much better. So shout out Ramit.
The reason I would like to rent is that it gives you the freedom to move around like you want to. What I mean by that is when your rent lease expires, you can actually move to a different city if you want to. You don't feel like you're stuck. I mean, you can always sell your house, but how many times do you want to keep buying and selling when you move to different states or city? That would be the advantage for me to rent a house. But to be honest, at the end of the day, if I find a city that I prefer to spend the rest of my life in and settle in permanently, I would still prefer to own my own house. That's just me. Again, guys, please leave a comment below. Please like these videos. I want to grow this channel so other people can get to see these videos and see what other people are going through in the country at the moment. So again, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And this comes to the end of this video, and I will see you guys when I upload the next video. Thank you and bye bye.